Well, hello, I'm alone in Finland, and this is an odd view for you people. Sorry for the people that don't like the ultra wide sort of fish eye lensy thing, but that'll be done in a second. I just want to show this part first before anything else because a lot of people that talk about gaming monitors and things like this, or setups in general, are always talking about the high end components, about the best monitor that you can get, and things like this. And I am guilty of being somebody who enjoys this stuff. But as people have seen on my setup before, if I'm running something on the side client, this monitor here is one of these, I think it's an LG square monitor, or roughly square. However, it's only got a 60 frames refresh rate, so it runs at 60 FPS maximum, or 60 hertz. But this runs Eve perfectly fine. Now this runs at 125, and frames wise the generation can kick up to like 250 for what's actually being rendered by the video card. And if you notice this separation here, this monitor is actually, although it's one monitor, it's got two cables coming into it, so it's running as if this is a separate monitor to that. So as far as the computer knows, I've got three monitors connected to it. This one's a separate system. But it renders three separate monitors. This one at 60, these two at 125 or 120, something like that. However, the difference between these displays is nothing when it comes to actual response time in games in general. The only issue you get into is when you're running multiple Eve clients, and I'm talking 4 or more Eve clients, then it starts to get a little bit of an issue, and there is some sort of bug within Eve that it doesn't like too many clients on the same system. So you start to get freezes or jitters for the client that you're not selected on, and it can happen. But for this video, I'm going to be talking about specifically DualBoxing on one PC and not alt-tabbing. When I'm talking about it, I'm talking about two windows next to each other on the single screen. Now, you can do multiple screens. They don't need to be good. And nowadays, with how much the prices are coming down and with second-hand monitors being very cheap, I mean, they're even cheap in Finland and everything here is expensive. You can pick up a decent gaming monitor second-hand for €100. You can pick up a decent gaming monitor from the shop for €170, something that'll get you through. I'm not saying you should. This is just an option I'm going to talk about when it comes to DualBoxing specifically, because some people have been talking about this and I don't disagree, and I'm actually going to try it out now. For all clarity, this is my sort of DualBox setup. This is my regular sort of Eve setup when I'm running more than one client. I run two clients and I run them technically on the same screen, so they're on the same place in front of me. That's why I've got the side screen for different information or window stuff. And the reason that I've got a second computer set up is for either doing stuff separate to the main computer, so rendering videos or stuff like that, or also if I'm playing Eve and I'm recording, this means that I can still watch something. I actually have two separate sets of speakers so that I've got the output from the game that I can listen to, but I can also listen to a film and it doesn't affect what's on there, because trying to record two separate audio sources is so much of a ball ache that it was easier for me to have two separate systems. That was just, I was in a really good financial situation and I made a very poor decision. That's actually one I don't regret. So that's also where you can see I've got two separate keyboards and, well, mouse and trackball. The white stuff is the little computer. The black stuff is the main computer. So that's what's going on there. Just sort of full visual for this. Now, jumping back in time, if you go back 20 years, after I first started playing Eve, I moved to a dual screen setup very quickly. It was a bit expensive at the time, but Scottish student loans were quite nice, so they covered it for me. But I actually had an Alienware system back in the days before Dell owned them, and I had two screens, and I would run a single client on one screen and watch movies on the other. And then I started running two clients side by side and sort of listening to stuff from my mini disc, because it was that long ago that mini discs were still a thing. But I quite like this way of playing, and I think it's a good thing. And with some of the more ultra wide settings, because this, although this is an ultra wide monitor, this screen that you can see here is technically ultra wide in the shape it's in, and these are actually quite well suited for running two Eve clients side by side. The only problem is you have to have them windowed, but there are sort of ways around that. I still think it's a good way of doing it, and somebody pointed out something, especially when it comes to missioning, that I'm going to test out, and well, let's talk about it. So first up, we need to start with some definitions. I'm going to talk about this an awful lot, specifically mentioning DualBoxing. Everybody's got slightly different definitions for this, but in Eve, normally if you are single boxing, then that's one client. If you are multi-boxing, then that covers a various range of things, which could be 2 clients or 20 clients. But it also could cover whether you've got them on separate screens or whether you've got them on one screen. And the point of what I want to make with this sort of DualBoxing is that it's 2 clients only, and you can see both clients at the same time. So you set up your screen specifically so that you can see this. Now, having previously seen my setup, you know that I've normally got them on bigger screens. I'm just sort of doing this to condense it in for the video. So my overviews haven't been set up correctly. I'm not going through all of the sort of trouble to put in the correct filters and things like this. And if you're doing this initially, if you want to test this out, one of the things that you can do is to set up your overview, just do your basic targeting. But when you target on one client, say for instance the left client, you target top down, and you arrange them by distance. So you target top down, so closest to furthest, and then on your second client, in this case the right client, you target from the furthest to the closest. Now, this isn't a particularly good setup for doing this. On the left I've got a marauder, but on the right I've got a battleship, and I've got a fairly low skilled character. This particular character was actually one of my capital fleet characters, so they were set up for mining and capital fighting. They weren't set up for anything to do with battleship. So I've thrown a couple of skills together, and this is literally a day of training. So you can actually see here, you can see that they're not actually training because the other client on this account is doing the training at the moment, but I'm actually running with Arblast cruise missile launchers. So this is just a purely sort of or mainly Tech 1 system. You can see I've got a little bit of skills when it comes to the armor, but everything else is sort of closer to Tech 1. Even as far as the drones, I'm actually using the Imperial Navy ones as opposed to the Tech 2 ones, because I don't have large drones skilled for this, which is ironic when you got fighters. But so I'm just doing this as a bit of a test, because somebody specifically said to me that one of the things that you can do missioning is to actually blitz through the missions using 2 clients, so that you are sharing the LP, you are skilling up a second character to be able to do missioning, but also when you jump into the mission, because you've got 2 battleships running at the same time, you're smacking things at double the speed, so you can actually bump up the speed of going through the individual sections of the missions. So I just thought I'd show this so that you can see what it's about. This was a suggestion for somebody else. It's not something that I've run in the past, but I'm actually going to have a look at this over the next little while. But I thought I've run one mission with this already, but I thought I'd put it out there because this is within the realm of more people doing it. Now again, this is something that you have to be in Omega to do. You can only run 2 accounts or more than 2 accounts at the same time if you're in Omega. If you're in Alpha, you can only have that one account open. And although I've made this mistake in the past and shown it, you can open 2 clients in Alpha on separate machines, but if CCP knows that you are the one person, that's a violation of the rules, so you're putting your accounts at risk to do that. So don't do it, because yeah, you're risking something, and you might be risking 2 accounts, you might be risking more, and when somebody gets sort of flagrant with a violation, CCP can come down like a ton of bricks, so just be warned. But yeah, these 2 accounts are in Omega at the moment. The left one's actually my main one, the right one is sort of my secondary, I think it's the best way to put it. Sometimes it's in Alpha, sometimes it's in Omega, but for the moment I've had some cheap skills coming in, so that's what I'm doing with this one. So first thing I want to show is, you can see that I've already got a mission that's open on the left, and a good example of this is if I open the LP and I open the same agent, you can see that I don't have the standings for this agent, Begone Scum, on the other character. However, if we put these two characters into a fleet, so we just for fleet with, and then accept, join, give it 30 seconds to let it sort out everything, and then I'm going to complete this mission, and it should give me the, do you want to share your LP with all of the other ones? I leave this open because sometimes I run missions with other people, but I know a lot of people just sort of remember your preferences. So yes, split the mission report, mission LP. It'll split the LP, but also if we then close this and reopen, you can see that my standings have gone up. So doing this is a way to skill up another account, or to get higher standings with another account if you want to use that for mission running, or if you just happen to be in a corporation with other people and you want to get them up to the point where they can use. So it's a way that you can assist other players as well. You will have to give them a little bit of LP at the time, but at the same time you can sort of share the goods and stuff like that. Maybe you can work out a deal of ISK per LP sort of thing. But this is a way to sort of skill somebody else up. As you can see here, this account now from, I think it's 4 missions, has managed to pick up 22,000 LP. And that's around about the difference. The 23,000 difference is because this main character has different skills, so it gets a little bit more LP from the thing. So that adjusts some stuff. So let's take another mission. Unauthorized military presence, it's out in Tvink, and nice simple one to pick up. So I'm just going to run through this one with the 2 ships, and then you'll see how it runs. So I'll show off a couple of the little multi-boxing things, and the first one is actually warping to destination. So I'm setting destination here, and then what I'm actually going to do is if I right click, my god, my overview is just mental because it's not set up right, but if I go down to here, I go warp fleet to the point. So this is going to warp them to 0 on that gate. And then I can hit jump, but it means that everybody's warping at roughly the same time, depending on how your align works out. However, then on this character, if I bring up the gates and then hit twink and jump, it's already in warp. So now the 2 accounts are going to jump when they land on the gate. So it's the same as hitting jump personally, but you're initiating the warp together. Now the reason that this is kind of important, especially for those of you that worry about hackers, is I've seen people mention before where they've seen 15 accounts land on the gate at the same time and immediately warp at the same time. But this is how you can actually do this, so that the whole fleet is landing at the same time and warping. So you, as they're all of the ships, all of the accounts are moving along, you can be hitting jump on several ones. So you can't trust that as, I know this person is botting or something like this, because it is possible to make it look like this. The exact same as warping away with the fleet warp. Now for this, we've got the warp to location, which is slightly problematic because you can't actually fleet warp in. However, it's a good idea to have your first ship that you're using be the tank, so that you bring in the other ships. If they aren't sort of equally skilled in tank, you bring in the other ships afterwards, which means that the majority of stuff will aggro the first ship, so you don't have to deal as much with multiple things going on. So now we've landed on a place, I am just going to hit align, then I'm going to hit warp to member on the second account, then hardeners on, tracking it on, and I'm going to start from the closest and work my way down the targets, and then start racking up the guns. And then when the second one lands, I'll do it the other way. Now obviously my first ship is a marauder, so I'm gonna melt through these. There you go. Oops, still on the wrong account. 1 and 2. This is why I've got my guns grouped this way. The second ship I've got all the missiles together. So just keeping an eye on what's going on, cycling in, then from here targeting bottom to top and aligning to the gate and turning on the afterburner. and anything else that I sort of need out of this. Initiating the weapons, then here again, shooting one and leaving the second one for the battleship. Now I'm going to kick on the micro warp drive and get my marauder into the second pocket, nice and simple. And for this, because of the angle I'm at, I'm not actually going to head towards the gate, I'm going to run parallel to it. So I'm adjusting the direction so that it hits warp a little bit faster. Turn off the micro warp. And when it gets to it, as it's cycling down, warp and away we go. So it's moving nice and fast. Now there's no warp gates on this section, but I do have things that are a little bit further out. So what I'm actually going to do for this one is drop into Bastion, because that'll increase my range. I'm going to target 2 small ships, and then I'm literally going to pick a ship per group. I'm going to pick those 2 small ones. And then I'm going to start smacking ships of every single group, because I want to aggro everything at the same time and bring them in. Bear in mind, this is something that's easier with a marauder. You have to watch what's happening to your shields, and as you can see here, my second account's bounced off the gate. But it's something that if you want to run through it faster, you can pull all the groups in, but be aware of the aggro. Maybe if you haven't run the mission before and you don't know whether you can tank the mission, then it's something to beware of and just work your way through group by group. Obviously, I've talked about this before, but there are multiple sites, including Eve University, that will give you the sort of lowdown on what missions you're going into if you want to do it that way, which is nice and simple. I'm just going to pick a couple of the smaller ones out because they're easier to tag with these guns. At the moment, I can hit at 58 kilometers, so I'm going to let them get a little bit closer. And then for this account, I'm actually going to start with the stuff that's further out. Target a few of them. I can hit out to 113, so no problem there. Now I'm not pushing the drones out just yet because I don't quite know what they're going to do. Some of the newer missions are particularly aggressive when it comes to the drones, so we'll see what's what. Then I'm going to start targeting the cruisers and just work my way through. So working from closest to furthest away with the short range ship, and furthest away to closest with a long range ship. And you can set them up like that. You can set up a battleship as a sniper and a battleship as a close range brawler, or something in between. This just happens to be the fit that I use running solo for my marauder on the left. And then on the right is just something I threw together, which is a fit I've got for something else, and just slightly modified, because I don't actually have, for this particular ship, it usually runs with Warden drones. I can't remember the armor sniper drone name, but that's what I usually run it with. So it's running just a fit I threw together at the last minute because I was curious about this. I do see it as a viable option. You are pounding targets a little bit faster. Obviously there is a massive difference in skills between the 2 ships I'm running with, but as you can see, it's still chewing through the first battleship. Let's actually get the Navy Praetors out and see what's going on. So I'll kick these out. And I can engage that far out, that's good. Right. 2 cruisers that are close in. So I'll pick on the cruisers first. Well, I've just noticed that these guys are getting close, so let's slap a web of fire on that. Kill 1 frigate. Kill the 2nd frigate. 3rd frigate down. Nice and quick. Then doing some more targeting, picking stuff that's nice and close, just picking in order of proximity. And I might as well actually throw out the MTU. Not much is dropping loot, but there is some there. So a little bit of a smack for that battleship that's coming in close. Then for this one, kick those missiles back on because it's having a tough time with that war general. Oof. This really isn't a good... It's not that it's not a good fit, it's that it's not got good skills. It's very low end. So here we go again. Pop that destroyer. Cycling, retargeting. And now I'm actually going to post the shield. This particular Marauder is not cap stable, but it is stable for like 20 minutes or so. But I usually don't run with it on. And a lot of missions, if I'm not drawing full aggro, most of the missions don't actually require me to turn on the shield. Just the nature of a Marauder, it has so much shield. I run a lot of level 4 missions with a paladin and I never get into armour with it. So it's actually quite a good ship for that. There's only a few that really seem to ding it up. So if you've got higher skilled ships, then in general I think this is actually quite a decent idea, something to do. But for the skills of my second, it needs a lot more skills to be able to sort of keep up with the first one. But there could be ideas of doing this, and I'm showing this style of DualBoxing specifically with missioning because it's sort of the easy way to gain it. So if you're not familiar with it, I think running the missions is a good way to get your eye in almost for switching between the two and keeping an eye on what's going on in both, especially if you're not used to it. If you're a single player person, then it might just be something that you're not used to and you just need a little bit of training. We can all be trained to do almost anything. So this is the easier way to do it because you are still managing 2 clients, but it's not as in depth as a lot of other things. And multi-boxing when it comes to mining just isn't really a skill. It doesn't require any sort of competence. This is something that requires sort of lower level competence, but is a good stepping stone to train up a bit higher. So I'm going to pull the drones in. If you don't know, you can click on groups and drag them just to throw them out or pull them back in. So I'm pulling the drones in for that one. I'm cancelling the Bastion module. And then there's not much in loot in this particular mission, so I'm just gonna... Now the Bastion's dropped off, I'm gonna scoop the cargo hold. I'm already gonna send the second one back to Lingisi. And I'm gonna search for that cargo container. There we go, 1.2 million. It's trash I can use. Oh. Nope. I actually need a very specific thing from this mission, don't I? So I have to search for a bit of cargo. Centurion, Liquidator, Legionnaire. What's that one? Smasher, Wreck. There we go. So I need to grab this one specifically to get my little militants. So I'm just going to grab that with the tractor. I'm usually carrying a tractor on the Marauders. It's very seldom I don't carry one. And these are just tractor beam 2s. Most of mine are consortium. But most of the time that I do mission running, I actually do it in a paladin. I like the paladin. I think it's a great ship. And it has a hell of a alpha strike. It's fantastic. So you can munch through a whole lot. But the Galante, I think it's a Kronos, the Galante Marauder is the only ship that I don't really use when it comes to missioning. I use the other 3. I've got actually 2 of them in Lingisi. It's this one and the Kildare, the Golem. So there we go, jump that one back, throw this one into the station. Now, once you've actually got 2 accounts that are skilled up and running the mission agents, the other thing that you can do, and which was the other part of this, is you can pull both missions at the same time. So maybe it's a case of you get multiple missions, and especially if you don't mind standings, or you're jumping between sort of standings clients, when you pull the faction missions, you can get a whole load of tags from them, especially if you stack up multiple. So you can go out and do several missions, harvest them all, get all the tags, and that gives you a hell of a sort of not XP but ISK boost to your missioning. So there's a lot of ways that this can become slightly more profitable, and when you start doing multiple things together, so you're running the missions in parallel, you're running multiple missions at the same time, so every undock is taking out 2 missions, then you're coming back scooping all of the loot and things like this, you can start making a lot of money. And it does give you a practice into multi-boxing if that's something you're interested in, but at the same time, DualBoxing is just sort of 2 clients on screen, so you're not really stretching your attention as far as it can go. It is something that is still more active, so it's not the same in the way that you are normally playing EVE, especially if you're a PvE player, but at the same time it's not as extreme as sort of fast-paced FPS or solo pirate hunting or something like that when it comes to actual gameplay wise. So I think this is a good stepping stone, and if you're interested in it, this is a way that you can make it a little bit easier. And again, it can help skill up a second character if you want to do missioning that way, or if you want to pull another character into good standings for a particular area or something like that. It's always an idea. So I thought I'd show this because somebody mentioned it, and I actually hadn't thought about this before, for mission running, and which is kind of ironic because I've been in a mission running corp, well, God, decades ago, but I was in a mission running corp at one point where we would all pull missions for the same agents. So we would have 7 or 8, so every undock you were warping to 7 or 8 places, doing those missions, coming back, grabbing all the LP, going back out, and rinse and repeat. And it can be a good laugh when you're playing with mates. I think anything in EVE is a good laugh when you're playing with mates. Definitely a good game for it, but I thought I'd show this off because I thought it was an interesting comment and I thought it deserved a bit of attention. So this is it. Nice simple setup. You can start it with 2 battleships, and it would give you a little bit of advantage if you're lower skill, you're newer coming into the game, and you're still sort of scaling up. Makes it a little bit easier applying more damage, and in that case I would actually sort of focus on the target. So try, if you can, to go more gunnery based instead of missiles, because you don't have that time lag between launch and damage application. But you could then sort of, everybody targets top to bottom, you're always aiming at the same stuff, and you're just popping in a line and applying 2 battleships worth of damage onto the single target. So it can work a little bit better. You can also try and take gates at roughly the same time. You might be able to spread the aggro that way depending on your tank, and you can even go so far as to be sort of remote rep fit to keep each other's battleships up. If you don't know, when you're running remote repairers and remote energy transfer, so you don't have any singular repairers for your own ship, but you're always projecting a remote effect between your ships, you can actually generate a higher amount of remote repair. This would be good on the Nestor. Immediately a lot of people would think about the Triglavian ships. However, the Triglavian ships, because of the way that their damage ramps, they're really not good ships for mission running. They are probably the least effective because it takes so much time for the damage to ramp up to a decent level, whereas for mission running you want immediate application on target. And I would actually say that probably the best mission runners, if you're doing it as multiple clients, the best ones would actually be the Minmatar ships, because you've got the switchable ammo types that comes with using projectile weapons, but you also have the immediate impact punch because there's sort of higher alpha that comes off of them, which is, as you can see there, I sort of for the smaller ships I can 2 turrets together just insta pop most of the frigates. So as soon as you come in, you work your way through the frigates and then start taking out everything a little bit faster. The trade-off is whether you're using autocannons or artillery, sort of dictates your range. I don't have any artillery for this, it's purely autocannon built, so I think that's the best I can sort of do with this. And yes, I'll split those earnings again, just because I'm curious about this. I'm going to build up some standings for this particular one as well. There you go, 3.1 effective standing for a mission agent that hates me. Watch planet where you're born on, check your standings, or next time I'll drill a hole in you. Well, that sounds like a promise and a half. So, yeah, all that's been said. I've not actually mentioned that in a while, but I do have a sort of Patreon and coffee and all of that jazz if you have too much money and you like throwing it at stupid people. And top of that, we also have the whole stuff down in the doobly-doo below, the Marquee Dragon, which will get you some discounts on your stuff. At the moment, there isn't really any good deals on. I think the Black Friday deal on Game Time has actually stopped. I'm not entirely sure as of when this video goes up, so it might be there, it might not be there, but in general, because Christmas is coming, if I were you, I would save your money for a little bit. I'm always happy to get a kickback, but I would save your money until the Christmas season because there will be bigger discounts then. So it's a better time to buy because you get more bang for your buck. With that being said, if you're going on to Marquee Dragon, then Loan in Finland is a code, or there's a link in the description down below. And then there's the whole 3 million free skill points if you happen to be one of those people that don't yet have an account on Eve. So with all that, thanks for watching. Welcome to all the new subscribers and stuff like this. I usually do 1 video a week. At the moment, it's getting a bit odd, but we shall see. Bye!